And Merry Christmas. And for the final time in 2020, welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Aaron McIntyre. You're Todd Erzin, and you are you. Let us know what you think about what we think. Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email the program. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook on our new MeWe page at Steve Deace. On Twitter, you can follow us at Steve Deace Show. Over on the free speech alternative to Twitter, Parler, follow us there at Steve Deace. And check out our new YouTube channel at youtube.com/Steve Deace. You can also check out my new book, A Nefarious Carol. Yes, you can hit the buy button on Amazon.com again. Some of you have asked, hey, are you getting shadow banned there now? No, I'm not. In this case, what has happened is you guys have bought a lot of books, and the system underestimated how many of these books we were going to sell and is trying to catch up. So, Merry Christmas to all of you and the Deace children. All right. So thank you very much. The Audible book has been ranked among the top 100 books overall on Audible at times here in its very first week. So we are very, very pleased with how the new book is going. It is the sequel to my 2016 book, A Nefarious Plot. Now that he is confident that his demon general, Lord Nefarious, has dismantled America, the enemy himself has decided the time has come to turn America into his own launching pad for the final stage of his master plan, and that is to make America the country that gives the world his Antichrist. But for that to occur, he needs a mate. He needs a woman who willingly gives himself to her. Otherwise, the ritual will not be successful. He cannot impose himself on her. He cannot intentionally deceive her. Of course, it's the enemy, so he's deception incarnate. But I mean, he can't go out of his way to trick her. He has to woo her of her own free will. A young woman, desperate and alone in a motel room one night, has to agree to become the bride of Satan. And over the course of one evening, you listen to this conversation, his attempt to woo this woman by using as a model one of the favorite books of her childhood, Dickens' A Christmas Carol. He walks her through her past, her present, and her future, and then at the end, she has a decision to make which would alter the course of all of mankind. That's right. We go from a child born in a barn, in a stable, changing the course of human history, to the potential of a child conceived in a seedy motel room, maybe doing the same. And if you want to get your copy of the book, you can do that right now at Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. It's back in stock. You should be able to order it. Hopefully there won't be too much of a delay now that the holiday crunch, we scheduled this for mid-December so we could get all these orders in before the holiday crunch. And then more of you ordered it than they expected. So now we're kind of mired in the holiday crunch. I apologize for that. Everybody does. But thank you. I mean, the response to this book has been phenomenal. So thanks to all of you. And please keep those coming. And now we also enter the phase 2. If you've had a chance to listen or read the book, keep those 5-star reviews coming over at Amazon as well. The more of those we get helps for Amazon to think, hey, this is a book that we want to promote. So thanks very much for all of the support the book has received. Well, I mentioned at the top, this is our final show of the year. Several of you, numerous people have sent us cards, gifts this year. I just can't remember everybody's names. We have gotten so much of a response from a lot of you in our audience. And I think I speak for Todd and Aaron when I say thank you for every single one of those gifts. The fact that you took time out of your schedule to send us baked goodies or music or other gifts, gift cards, just thank you to all of you. It really means a lot, and I think it goes to show the connection that we have with you here in our audience, a connection that was strengthened by this incredible year that we had. And when we get done with our show today, our final overtime, instead of a best and worst of the week, it's going to be our best and worst of the year for 2020. So you can watch that today at blazetv.com/Deace. That's DEACE. That's where you can go to get a discounted subscription to Blaze TV right now. And also where you can go later today. We're going to record it after the show. If you're already a subscriber, that's where you can go to watch it later today. But I started thinking today, getting ready for the show, I don't know how the two of you, because the tradition is Todd and Aaron get together and decide what are the top 10 stories of the year in order, and then I react to that, right? I don't know how you would do a top 10 stories of this year. I mean, it's like top 10 tribulations. Top 10 bowl judgments of the year. I mean, did you guys like when they opened up Abaddon, or was your favorite when all the earthquakes we had, right? I mean, it was that kind of a year. So I'm anxious to see this list. Are we ready to go?
Aaron's your guy, but he did a fantastic job. I mean, he really takes point on this because I think he, in his mind, when he's thinking of the list, he's also thinking of, the visual package of doing it. I think when I first looked at Aaron's list and then I made my contributions to it, the thing I was amazed at the most is how much of this stuff you actually kind of forgot. They belong in the top 10. Yeah. But like number 8 was like, it happened so long ago, or it's been buried by all the other stuff. That's what struck me.
So let us begin. The top 10 stories of 2020. Here's number 10.
Number 10 is What's a Woman? Now, full disclosure, I thought about making each story just What's a Woman, just a different flavor of What's a Woman. But it's only appropriate that the top 10 stories of 2020 begins with lies and confusion about one of the most basic aspects of creation. Boys are girls, it turns out, and women are men. It started with the Super Bowl featuring numerous commercials with drag queens and transgendered people. It continued with breathless headlines about how coronavirus is taking an especially difficult toll on trannies. It went on with a march in Brooklyn at the height of the pandemic with tens of thousands of people called Black Trans Lives Matter. And it hit its crescendo for the year when a major party's presidential nominee, Joe Biden, now just moments away from being the president, saying it's pretty great that 8-year-olds would transgender themselves. Whatever the story was this year, we seemingly always had the transgender angle.
I think it is incredible that this is number 10. I mean, stop and think about what that says about what the next 9 stories must be. We are devolving as a species in real time right now. I mean, our friend Phil Kerpen uncovered over the weekend that the epidemiologist who has modeled vaccine distribution for the CDC, are you ready for this?
I saw it.
Is a gender non-binary defund the police activist who, according to his social media accounts, quote, is living on occupied land, unquote. He's insane. He is literally insane. He is mentally ill. He's more than somebody whose politics we don't share. This is an individual that needs prayer and counseling at an intimate level. He is mentally ill. And he is modeling vaccine distribution for the Centers for Disease Control. I mean, this is the first basic building block of civilization. He created them, male and female, in his image, Moses writes. He created them. It doesn't get any more basic than this. And the fact that the undermining of it in real time is this 10th story. Last Friday, man, we did our Deace group year end. I wasn't meta enough, is what you're telling me. If this is number 10.
And I said that tongue in cheek about thinking this would be number 10, 9, 8, because it is. It is number 10, 9, 8. We live with
it's a
an
Rosetta
entire
Stone
swath of people.
Yes.
who just do not and are working to undermine that you just described there, Steve.
It's what you said a lot throughout the course of the year, Todd, that if you're gonna mess with nature or creation on this level, then why wouldn't you just mess with everything then? Why would you accept any fact or any data point or any truth that doesn't give you the outcome or the result that you want, right?
Yeah,
everything is a negotiation at this point.
The lockdowns or mostly peaceful protests aren't any crazier than this.
Right.
This just opened the barn door wide.
Same people pushing them both, but if you're pushing that on gender, then stretching the truth in that magnitude it's what I've used to say for years about our pro-life legislative strategy of regulating abortion. When the fetus can feel pain, when the woman is so far along, right? Mm-hmm. Well, who is reporting these conditions? Because we don't have a national prenatal registry, and no one should support one, right? In their right mind. And so who is often determining, is the child at 19 weeks or 20, 23 weeks or 24? Is there a heartbeat? Was the woman raped or not? Who is doing the reporting in these cases?
The people doing the
people
crime.
that are going to do the kill.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're already murdering, if you're murder incorporated, murder for hire, right? Then why in the world would lying or distorting data, why would that trouble your conscience when you get up and kiss your own kids, see you this afternoon, sweetie, and then go to work and kill other people's kids, right? I mean, lying and distorting data is not really a big leap forward. In fact, that's kind of the JV team, right?
Right.
That's what you're saying about the gender issue, that if we're going to mess with nature and truth and creation at this level, then why wouldn't we just mess with it at every single level at that point then?
No, and total chaos clearly wasn't possible until we got to that point. And I do think as heinous as the sin of abortion was, it was always connected to this thing called women's rights. And back at Roe v. Wade, we still knew what a man was, and we still knew what a woman. And even though that notion of that right being heinous, it's clear that there was something that still needed to be broken. And going forward, you started with the primordial first truth, male and female, he created them. The fall, then, Cain and Abel came after that first murder. So we're moving back through time to get all the way back to the beginning. It wasn't, abortion wasn't enough. It had to keep plowing through and get to the first bit. And now we're there. That's what's chilling about this. I've said before, when my wife and I are going on our walks and still trying to think about the normal of the future, in the back of my mind is this: we're all the way back. We've destroyed the essence of what it means to be human.
You're at the mouth of madness is where you are.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Number 9.
Number 9. UFOs are real. The Pentagon made nary a wave this summer when they officially released videos purportedly showing unidentified flying objects in videos taped years ago by U.S. jet fighters. The Pentagon officially called them unidentified aerial phenomena, an admittance that they had no clue what they are.
This is... I drove in here today, and I've been having this inner dialogue with myself since I got up this morning, actually, getting mentally prepared to do this show, because normally by now we're on vacation by now. And so if, truth be told here, we stretched this out another day just because I had a book coming out on December the 15th. Otherwise, this all would have been done last week. So I'm half of my body clock is like, hey, aren't you supposed to be on your Christmas vacation? And the other half is like, I got to get my mind ready to do this show, right? And I mentioned here a few minutes ago, I don't know how you guys would come up with a top 10 list given the year that we have. And then you start questioning yourself, like, is it really that big of a deal? Because you're living through it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you're living through it. And I mean, I remember exactly what transpired every moment of September 11th, 2001, right?
Right.
But then I also remember, like, we put off the NFL for a week, and then games and college games and stadiums were full the very next week, right?
Yeah.
And there was a huge push by the Bush administration at the time to return to normal as soon as we possibly could, right?
Yes.
All right. And so we still had Christmas that year and a normal sports season and everything else. And you stop and think, are we making too much of this? Are we blowing this out of proportion because we didn't live in other times? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then I'm sitting here, we're 15 minutes into this show, and the first two stories looking back on the year are, we don't know what a gender is. We don't know what a woman is. And after years and years and years of cover-ups, the government is now admitting that there is unexplained phenomenon and technology unknown as far as the limits of our knowledge to this planet that they can confirm exists in real time, right?
Yeah.
Those are the first two issues, and they're 10 and they're 9. I lived through all of this. We covered all of these stories. It's our job. And even I am just like sitting here with you folks doing the show right now. Like, this is almost like an out of body experience. I cannot even imagine what those of you out there who have other lives, and then you come to places like this to get informed, right? But your life doesn't revolve around this the way that ours does because it's our careers. I can't even imagine how you are receiving this, because I'm just like, we're 2 stories in, man, and I'm like, when's the trumpet sound? Am I blowing this out of proportion?
No, I think that the danger is doing the opposite. The return to quote unquote normal is very much being used as a drug to simply not either want to deal with it, which certainly isn't the case with many listeners on this show, but there's plenty of others who just don't want to deal with it, but just to simply not have the answers of how to deal with it. With that, actually, I think describes the three of us in this room.
Yeah.
We like to think we're guys that can have answers.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't know. Like, the way forward short of violence seems almost non-existent to me in many respects.
Let's go to number 8.
The 8th biggest story of this year would have been the biggest story in like 2 or 3 years in a previous time. Late last year, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to impeach President Donald Trump for abuse of power and obstruction related to his phone call congratulating a Ukrainian politician. Seems like a little bit of an overreaction. The articles of impeachment were submitted to the Senate on January 16th of this year, and Trump was acquitted on February the 5th.
I'm just like, so far, we don't know. We don't know what a woman is, right? We may be acknowledging
Little green man.
Yeah, interplanetary travel life outside of this planet.
Yeah, little green life, non-gender specific. I apologize. I overstepped.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Oh, and guys, yeah, for the third time ever in American history, we impeached a president. Like, I completely forgot about that. I forget about it all the time. And you remember, he'll be too young, but you remember the Clinton impeachment.
Oh.
How that was like the friggin' OJ trial for 2 years, right? In fact, we kind of went right from the OJ trial, right in, we got like a break for like a year after the OJ verdict, and then we went right like into the Monica Lewinsky, Ken Starr probe, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that was like an ordeal for like almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just seemed like everything was about that. You couldn't escape it anywhere you went. This was just kind of like, yeah, they had to do it. I mean, we were joking when they won the House, they were going to find something to have an impeachment vote. They had to do it right, or their base was going to light themselves on fire.
Right.
So now impeachment is just a box we check. We just impeach people now just because people in everybody's bases, certain just demand this, right? So we're just everybody's getting impeached. It's just something we just kind of do now. You know, it's not the existential crisis that our founders intended it to be. It's just par for the course, man. It's just part of the partisan rancor, at least on one side it is anyway.
And this is to your point about you can't outdo the shamelessness of lying about gender. So then they didn't even impeach him for the thing they wanted to impeach him on. Russian collusion, totally. Right. And they just reset and said, let's try this one anyways. And
then the thing they ended up impeaching him on, which was that he was attempting to cull information about, dig up dirt on Biden family corruption in exchange for taxpayer grift. That's what foreign aid is, right? Taxpayer grift. In exchange for taxpayer grift, that the Ukrainians would dig up dirt on Biden family corruption to help Trump's reelect. That was actually true.
Let's try the thing we know we're guilty of.
Yes.
Because the thing we made up that apparently nobody is guilty of didn't work. So
he got impeached for trying to get information on something that actually turned out to be at least true enough that the Department of Justice has been investigating it for nearly 2 years. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's not exactly Andrew Johnson reconstruction or Bill Clinton. Did I lie under oath on camera to a federal grand jury? Right? Not exactly the stuff of drama. Did President Trump attempt to gain knowledge of something that we found out later was true? Right?
Yeah.
Are we missing something, Aaron? Is there another angle to this?
Not really.
And those hearings.
Oh, the woman who looks like the librarian that you hate, and when we were the 6th grade librarian you couldn't stand, who basically her entire testimony was she was just pissed that Trump doesn't listen to people like her.
Yes.
And when he makes foreign policy decisions. Yeah.
It was he's icky.
She's kvetching, not testifying. She's kvetching. That's what she's doing.
Yes.
Right?
Which set a nice precedent then for trying to unravel whether anything happened with this actual election and
you see Bill Barr announced today on his way out the door he's not appointing a special counsel for either voter fraud or Hunter Biden. Did you see that?
I did not.
It's all right, man. He played the bagpipes that one time, right? He dropped a drink of water on Adam Moran Schiff, so that was all cool, right? That's all we want. That's all we want. We want clips and clicks. We just want to own the libs. We don't actually want to defeat them in the arena of ideas. That's all we want. We want the political porn, man. They're out there taking casualties, and we just want the porn. That's all we want. We want to jump on Fox Hub tonight. We want to hit our favorite political porn. That's what we want. Meanwhile, they're out there impeaching the guy for something that turned out to absolutely be true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 7.
Qasem Soleimani killed on
Finally,
January
some good news.
3rd. In the middle of the night, Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was targeted and eliminated by a U.S. drone strike near the Baghdad International Airport. Soleimani had been one of the most effective propagators of death and violence in the Middle East aimed at America and her allies. Naturally, the American media's reaction to the news of his death was predictable, most notably with Martha Raddatz of ABC News breathlessly reporting from Tehran, Iran, about the quote-unquote profound and powerful display from the Iranian mourners, who of course were also chanting "Death to America."
And then later this year, another one was taken out, right? Wasn't it one of their top nuclear scientists,
Correct.
I believe? Yeah. And then we had Brennan, our former head of the CIA, tweeting out to Iran, hey, we're sorry, soon there'll be a regime in place in America that actually favors Iran, right? That just happened like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can connect this back to the very first story. How are you going to keep a culture together when we don't know what a gender is and we can't even agree if Iran is bad, right?
Yeah.
How does We can't agree on. We can have disagreements on how to act on that fact. Okay, regime change, sanctions. Right? You know what I'm saying? We can disagree on how to act on that fact. And frankly, I have a different opinion than I would have had 10 years ago. I'd have been like, regime change them all 10 years ago. But I react to data. And I saw how regime change did not work in Afghanistan, did not work in Iraq. So I would be on a different tactical side now, which would be sanction them to the point of bankrupting them so their own people rise up and overthrow them. Not our problem. I wouldn't have been there 10 years ago, but you can change your mind about tactics. We're talking about fundamentals here. What is a gender? Is Iran bad? That's an argument. We're going to have that argument again next year if Joe Biden is sworn in. You get the third term it's going to be the Biden presidency. That's what it's going to be. It's the third term of Obama, essentially. And he's going to try to take us right back to that Iran deal, I would guess. And I will be fascinated if that were to occur. I will be fascinated to see how a lot of Arab countries that have chosen normalizing relations with Israel this year over defending Iran against us, I will be fascinated to see how that works. I mean, are we going to live in a world now where the United Arab Emirates is tougher on Iran than the United States if Joe Biden is president, right? What a strange time that would be. Bahrain is tougher on Iran than the United States. I mean, we could be heading to that conversation at some point next year.
And this is a good segue for the sixth biggest story of the year. Peace in the Middle East. Israel, with the help of the United States, announced the normalization of diplomatic and domestic relations with several countries this year, starting in September with Bahrain, then the United Arab Emirates, then Sudan, Morocco, and Bhutan. It was an historic year as perhaps the Middle East and the Arab world, recognizing the specter of Iran, starts to embrace a hang together or hang separately ethos of coexistence.
To me, I think this is maybe the crowning achievement of the entire Trump presidency. Is if on the domestic side we are frustrated, and you're seeing some of that frustration be validated by what Bill Barr said today, he's not going to do. But if we're frustrated on the domestic side, somebody tweeted this morning, I saw that when Trump needed to hire a lot more Rahm Emanuels and he hired Lindsey Graham's instead. There's a lot of truth to that. But where he absolutely and successfully exposed the swamp is in foreign policy. It began with that speech in Riyadh back in 2017, and then they took a year to figure out they needed to fire Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. And then once they did, Mike Pompeo, I thought, did a much better job, or at least did a much better job of actually defending the foreign policy of the president he worked for, as opposed to operating some kind of independent, undermining operation. But what they did, what the Trump administration did, and again, I'll just go where the truth is. I'm not a Jared Kushner fan, but he was a part of this, so we give credit where credit is due. All right. What they did is they flipped the paradigm on its ear. The paradigm was under Barack Obama, under George W. Bush, under George H.W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. The paradigm was, for decades, that the path to peace in the Middle East meant first we had to settle the Palestinian question. And that meant we had to triangulate Israel off of Arab countries we wanted to be friendly with. What the Trump White House did is they flipped that paradigm, and they went to the Arab countries and said, and the Muslim countries, and said, hey, do you want peace, or do you want to continue to fight over the Palestinian state? But you have to make that decision. We're taking the Palestinian question off the table. What's your other objection to peace? And so they flipped that paradigm on its ear, that the way to peace was not through the Palestinian question, but going around that question altogether. That is another thing that if Biden becomes president in January, you will see them go back to the old paradigm that has proven not to work as well. Continuing a breathtaking look back on the year that was 2020, a transcendent year, a meta year. And we're going through Todd and Aaron's selections of the top 10 stories of the year. I mean, just look at the list we have so far. What's a woman? Is there life outside of planet Earth? Impeachment? Peace in the Middle East? I mean, this is... that's only the first 5. We have the top 5 stories of the year. Let's continue here on our final show of 2020 with number 5.
Number 5, RBG to ACB. The country was rocked as right in the middle of one of the most contentious elections in one of the most contentious years in our lives. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away on September 18th. That kicked off a whirlwind succession effort as Trump quickly nominated 7th Circuit Judge, Catholic mother of 7, Amy Coney Barrett, and she was confirmed on October 31st. In a year of extremes, the ideological shift from Ruth Bader Ginsburg to Amy Coney Barrett was right up there with the most extreme, especially on the issue of abortion, which, if the right case comes to the court, Barrett could be the deciding vote.
There's no question this is one of the greatest judge-to-judge ideological swings in the modern history of the U.S. Supreme Court. And given the existential stakes we play for every day at the Supreme Court these days, it could be among the greatest one-seat ideological swings in the history of this republic. What I will be interested to see, though, as someone that thought she should have been appointed the last time over Brett Kavanaugh and was excited to see her appointment this time, is what we have seen. And granted, it is, a month, basically. She's been on the job for a month, right?
Right.
When there is a clear constitutional proviso at stake, she has been cash money, as we would have expected, right? But on the election challenges that have been brought before her so far, she has been nowhere to be found. And if she's a no on those, I'd like to know why, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course.
I would like to know. I respect her intellect. I greatly supported her candidacy on the court. And I still think she is way ahead of the other 2 justices that Trump nominated, of the 3. But I would like to know, because I respect her values and her intellect, I'd like to know why she's been MIA on that conversation. Those are just my 2 cents. You?
Well, the consensus, whether it's her or anybody else, seems to be that the amount of disenfranchising of votes that the argument from the Trump campaign wanted in exchange for the amount of malfeasance that may or may not have happened was just out of proportion to an acceptable reality. That's what I keep seeing over and over and over again, which there's just been a perfect storm of stupid all this, and all 3 of us in this room have thrown up our hands about this for close to a month now. So I pray that the rest of her career is filled with less. I can't imagine a more chaotic case to try to sort through than this, even though the decisions may be very hard. What we're dealing with, what's a man, what's a woman, what's a life?
Yeah.
Those are not imbued by the nonsense of...
And the same people that would burn the country down because they don't like your verdict on those are the same people that would do it if they don't like your verdict on this, right?
Yes.
And so that does give you pause as to, is she going to stand in the gap on those kinds of questions then? Or does she believe intellectually the case is weak? I would like to know. And the reason we make lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court It's because they're supposed to be immune from the daily back and forth of the political prevailing winds, right? So she doesn't have to face voters. I greatly respect her. I would like to know if she thinks this is a canard and why. I'd like to know that.
I think she and others think that there may be a lot more there than this administration has capably put forward. But when the remedy of this is literally overturning an election, none of us in this room with a straight face can look at each other and say the Trump administration consistently put forward an argument that
I don't
could
disagree
not be
with
denied.
that. But if that's your hesitation, understand that whatever desire there was from these people to get rid of Trump this time, they have a decade's zealot desire for the taste of baby blood.
Yeah.
So I would you stand in the with that? You see what I'm saying? You see the argument, the correlation I'm drawing here.
I do.
Okay, that's why I want to know what her intellectual argument is. I want to know. Let's go to number 4.
Number 4. Peaceful protests. On May 25th, Minneapolis police officers responded to a report of a bad check being written at the Cup Food convenience store in South Minneapolis. Officers found the suspect, 46-year-old convicted felon George Floyd, in a car. By now, you know the rest of the story. Floyd was uncooperative with the officers. The situation escalated, and Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin thought it was a great idea to kneel on Floyd's neck for upwards of 7 to 8 minutes. Floyd died. The autopsy revealed he was having drugs at the time of his attempted arrest. And before you could say boo, Minneapolis was up in flames, along with scores of other cities around the country. The press, who for months had warned people to stay indoors and away from crowds, was quick to remind America that the George Floyd protests were peaceful, even as $1 billion in damage was done by vandals and looters across the country.
And the name George Floyd largely disappeared and went away after the body cam footage came out. Make of that what you will. Number 3.
Number 3, Big Tech Brother. Wrong think, double think. I must not tell lies. This year we got a good dose of old Orwell in the form of big tech censorship. It began with the pandemic and Facebook, along with Twitter, doubling and tripling down on censorship of inconvenient information and views not approved of by the experts. Then with the election, it got even worse. Twitter and Facebook colluded to squash a story about Joe Biden's son Hunter from the New York Post. Twitter even went to the length of suspending the New York Post's Twitter account for weeks and outright blocked the link to the story. There could be a top 10 list on this story alone.
There's no question about it. And I think that this is, mark it down. This story, this trend line is the greatest threat to the future of this country happening right now, other than its spiritual demise. Because this is the end of knowledge. This is the end of epistemology, the end of truth, the end of contrarian critical thinking. You know, all of us are made in God's image, whether we are redeemed in the image of his son or not. We are all given a brain. We are all given critical thinking skills, correct?
Yes.
There's general revelation of right and wrong that has been made all throughout the laws of nature and nature's God. And they're written on our hearts, right?
Yes.
So, is it required for a society to have just laws and a somewhat balanced, healthy pursuit of knowledge? Is it required that born-again Christians hold a place of prominence in that society for that to occur? No. We have evidence of that, correct?
Right.
We have other historical societies where those things took place. Now, what we found is absent that Christian influence, you saw Rome on one hand would pave the world, and then would, on the other hand, have the gladiator games and great brutality and call it sport, right? And it was the Christian influence that ended that. But there has been the pursuit of knowledge and critical thinking outside of the Judeo-Christian framework in this world that has existed. What this will do is end that. You're talking about knowledge now becomes what's acceptable to get through their gateway. Not on the basis of whether something is true or not, but whether they're willing to allow you to communicate it as true or not. We're talking about, instead of Gutenberg discovering the printing press, elements within the church who were opposed to Luther discover it. And they've decided that anytime you challenge the tenets of the church or the infallibility of the Pope, you can't get printed. Your audience will be removed. That's what's going on here. Whoever controls the flow of information within a culture has control. This is, aside from the spiritual demise of the country, this is the greatest threat to the future of America, is this story. These people have all of our data. They sell it for trillions. And then maybe blackmail you with it, if they would like, if you get a little too squirrely. They then make their corporations public, courtesy of a regulatory body that you and I subsidize, and make billions more. And then on top of all of that, so they accumulate a war chest that just cannot be competed against. And then on top of that, then they get to decide what you get to see, and the knowledge that you get to decide your decisions upon. That is a very, very dangerous combination. Let's get to number 2.
Number 2. Tens of thousands of people in remarkably specific American counties don't know how to use the United States Postal Service. Apparently, mail-in voting was not a great idea. The states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and a few others all took their sweet time to, count the ballots they needed to put Joe Biden over the top in this November's presidential election. With ballots continuing to pour in these states days after the election, we're left with only one conclusion. A remarkable number of people in these remarkable specific locations must not know how to use the United States Postal Service.
That's the only other explanation here. And I think I said this the morning after the election, before I even got on my own show, when I was on with Glenn Beck. And then I reiterated it the morning after on this show. Before we ever knew what a Dominion was, or Sidney Powell moved from the Mike Flynn case to this, or anybody knew who the hell a Lynn Wood was, or any of that other stuff. Before we knew any of that, it was a very simple choice. You have to believe that it just so happens and occurred in the half dozen counties that they needed to sway the election, where they had total control of the process at every level of government. That they just, honestly, the people that live in Wayne County, Michigan, and Fulton County, Georgia, and Philadelphia County, PA, are just so mind-numbed and stupid that they didn't know how to mail in a ballot on time. They're just that dumb. And they all just voted, a whole bunch of them just voted for Biden and nobody else, because he's just that much more popular than anybody else. And it just so happened to occur in these counties that Redneck Bob, with his Hold My Beer in rural Mississippi, he understood when to mail his ballot in, right? Billy Bob understood when to mail in his ballot. Licked that stamp through his gap teeth, got it in. He knew. Billy Bob knew when to mail in his ballot. But somehow, in Wayne County and Fulton County and these other places, they don't know a post office. What is it? That is one option. The other option is, well, maybe there's a reason it just so happened to occur in these counties because they controlled the entire process. They could harvest ballots, dump them off. There's nobody to hold them accountable. And they've been getting away with these sorts of things for decades on multiple fronts. But it was one or the other. It is one or the other. Like the old IBM 2-minute warning commercial when we were kids. You make the call, America, because it's one or the other. There is no middle option. It is one or the other. 2 largest counties in Wisconsin, Dane County, was able to get all their ballots in just fine. Milwaukee County, what time's the mail start? I don't know. What's a stamp? Okay. You're just that dumb. You're too dumb to live then, I guess. Not too dumb to vote 9 times. Anyway, let's get to number 1.
The number 1 story this year: non-pharmaceutical interventions. The year was 1898. Author H.G. Wells, a graduate of the institution later known as Imperial College London, published his infamous fictional thriller, War of the Worlds. A few years later, that work of fiction went on to create a one-night panic in the United States after Orson Welles adapted the story for radio broadcast. Fast forward to the year 2020, Neil Ferguson, an epidemiologist at Imperial College London, published another work of fiction called Impact of Non-Pharmaceutical Interventions, NPIs, to reduce COVID-19 mortality and healthcare demand. A few days later, that work of fiction went on to create an ongoing panic in the United States and around the world thanks to legacy and broadcast media. And yet here we are, almost a year after that March 2020 paper was published from Imperial College, and all its disastrous recommendations are still being used, like harsh physical distancing protocols, quarantine for those not showing symptoms, and the closure of schools and universities. The paper estimated 2.2 million deaths in the United States by August of this year if the recommendations were not followed.
I just look at that list and I think, I don't know we're ever going to recover from this. From everything on that list. I don't know that we're ever going to recover from 2020. And we are back with the final hour of 2020, part 2 of our year-end edition of the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. If you missed part 1, we got some rave reviews. I haven't had a chance to say this to you guys yet, but we received rave reviews for the Deace Group year-end roundtable and Josh Hammer and Paul Alexander. So you can go back over at blazetv.com/Deace or subscribe to the podcast. If you subscribe to the podcast, by the way, give us a 5-star review while you're there. If you missed that, go and listen to that. We had a ton of fun with that. We ran out of time, so we had to do some bonus year-end Deace Group in the overtime for Blaze TV subscribers on Friday. And now we complete our year in review. We just finished the top 10 stories of the year as selected by Todd and Aaron. Coming up in this hour, we're going to take a look back at the predictions I made the first show of every year. I always make 10 predictions for the new year. The last 2 years, my predictions have actually been pretty good. I've got like 5 or 6 of these right, which is outstanding. This year, they're all going to be pretty much wrong because we had a year that nobody really anticipated. So the way we're going to look at those 10 predictions is if it weren't for COVID, do we think these things would have happened? All right. So we'll get to that here in just a moment. Also coming up in this hour, Aaron has selected the top 5 clips of the year, including the clip of the year. And then we are going to close the show with not the profit we need, but the profit we deserve. All that and more coming your way here in the final hour of the Steve Deace Show. Don't forget, the buy button is back on at Amazon.com. You guys have bought so many of these books. We crashed the system. Let's do it again. I challenge you to do it again. And so do my kids for Christmas next year. Plus, I think the book might be pretty good too. All right. So get your copy of my new book, A Nefarious Carol. It is available right now. They have copies back at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. Thanks to all of you that have purchased a copy already. Please, if you liked the book, if you had a chance to read it yet, listen to the Audible version, leave us a 5-star review. This isn't technically our final show of the year. It is the final Steve Deace Show of the year. But next week, on Tuesday, December 29th, and Wednesday, December the 30th. The three of us, we did this last year and had a ton of fun. The three of us will be filling in for Glenn Beck, which just goes to show how desperate they are to find backup help this time of year, that after what we did to that show a year ago, guys, they're bringing us back. They're risking bringing us back. What do you think that says?
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance, yes. So we will be filling in for Glenn Beck on the 29th and 30th of December. We've got, I got a couple things lined up yet for those 2 days I'm looking forward to. We'll tell you more about those as the time draws nigh. You can also email the show, steve@stevedeace.com. Again, that's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Like us on MeWe @Steve Deace. Follow us on Twitter @Steve Deace Show, @Steve Deace on Parler. And then there's our new YouTube channel as well at youtube.com/Steve Deace. So I've not actually looked at this crystal ball list since last January when I published it and we ran with it here on the show, because it was pretty clear by about Valentine's Day, if not the Ides of March, none of this is going down, right? But we believe in tradition, small t, on this show, okay? And so it is always a tradition to do the reconciliation. How did my predictions from the year before, how did they do? Now, almost none of these, I'm guessing, are going to turn out to be right. So we'll look at the ones that were wrong through the lens of, if it weren't for this being a COVID year, could the way things were developing prior to March, could this have occurred? Is that fair? Otherwise, we would just sit here the whole time and like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. That's a really short conversation, right? Fair?
It would have been entertaining.
Yeah, yes.
Telling you wrong for 5 minutes,
yes,
10 minutes.
And you can can still do that. Okay, I'm not stopping you. All right. But I also want to, this is a 30-minute segment here. All right.
Value added.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So let us begin. All right. First prediction that I made for 2020 as we look back. Well, I got this one right. I predicted the Kansas City Chiefs would win the Super Bowl. They did do that. So I got that one right.
Broke the Madden curse.
I
Patrick
did.
Mahomes.
Or they did. Yeah, I didn't break the Madden curse, but they broke the Madden curse. So I got that one right. Why do I think that's going to be like the only one I'm going to get right out of these 10?
Well,
because that's probably true. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next. I predicted that Soul from Pixar would be the #1 grossing movie at the domestic box office. No Star Wars movie this year. There was one Marvel movie this year, but with a character that people like, but in more of a supporting role. So I thought this would be the year that the big Pixar release, like a Toy Story, could resume, #1. Instead, that movie never got released in theaters. I believe it comes out on Disney Plus, I think Christmas Day or something. So...
yeah,
could that one have been #1, or were we still probably heading to like Wonder Woman 1984 being the #1 movie of the year if we had a non-COVID year?
These Pixar movies, I mean, there's a much broader appeal than even Wonder Woman or the superhero movies. So I still tend to and seeing. I mean, Tenet was released in theaters, and seeing kind of it appeals to a very certain individual, not a very broad appeal. So I still think this would have been correct.
Todd, what do you think?
It seemed like a reach.
Okay.
One that is the one you want to, I mean, you're the betting guy. You want to, speaking of value added, I mean, if you would have called this shot, most people I don't think would have done it. So I understand why you did it. Bold pick. I still felt like a reach. It seems like a little too esoteric.
Fair.
Of a film.
Fair, but remember when they did that, what's the movie with the 5 emotions that people loved? That was a massive hit. Yeah. And what was it called? I can't remember what it was called now, but this seemed like the next step to that, which was part of my analysis as well. So that change your mind at all?
Well, if it pulled that off that movie did.
That's what I thought it was going to do.
Then it's kind of gets a cult of personality, but I would need to, seeing is believing on that.
Okay. How about a half?
Yeah, I'll give you a half.
Is it a half point? Okay, is it a half point?
Yes.
I'm negotiating all the help I can get. And some
part of my half a dime.
And this is kind of sad. You know what I'm saying, though, as we go through this list, to think of the year and the things that we could have had that we did not.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Don't.
I mean, you look at this. It's a good thing today was our year-end edition, our final part 2. Because if it was not, I don't know if you guys get this way with your kids. Those of you that are watching on Blaze TV or listening right now, Blaze Radio or podcast. There's that initial anger where you might let them know what you think or raise your voice a little bit, right? But then there's that level of anger where you're just a rage. It's a seething. And the kids are like, dude, mom, dad, they're not even going to yell at me right now. That's how mad they are. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
That is where I am today with the Debbie Burke story that came out last night. She went to Delaware with 3 generations of her family to visit one of her vacation homes. One of them. Now she's trying to say we weren't there to celebrate Thanksgiving, but to winterize the house. But we're getting pictures of them sitting around. Looks an awful like Thanksgiving to me. You guys seen those pictures?
Yeah.
You guys winterize your house with watching the kids play and drinking glasses of wine and Chardonnay. Is that how you guys winterize your homes?
It's not a lie if you believe it, Steve.
Exactly.
Words are transgendered now. They mean something
exactly.
different.
That is it. That's it.
Yes. We keep coming back to that because it's the Rosetta Stone for everything else. But this is the same woman that told you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. And then afterwards said if you got together with family, assume you've been exposed, you're infected, go get tested. Remember this?
Yes.
Yeah. Lockdown for me, or for thee, but not for me. I'm so mad. Think of the proms. You won't get those back. The graduations, you're not getting those back. The funerals, not getting those back. How about the moment you left a loved one alone in a hospital or in any kind of medical care? Because of what the likes of Debbie Burke has wrought. How about the time in isolation of your elderly family members? We're not getting any of that back. None of it. Time is the one thing they're not making any more of. There's plenty of time for her to go with different generations of her household that live in different homes and mingle with them at Thanksgiving. But don't you visit your grandmother for Christmas. This is beyond hate. It's a rage. It's a seething. This is demonic. And if we weren't doing this special year-end edition of this show, I'd be saying some things over the course of these 2 hours about this today that might make this the series finale show, because that's how mad I am. And that is how mad you should be. Leave your homes. Open your businesses. Open the churches. Be a responsible adult. Don't be a moron. Put the same precautions in place you would for a very bad flu season, because that's what this is. Return America to the American people. Those that will not return it to you, take it from them. Take it from them. Claim what is yours. This is a republic if you can keep it. Keep it. It will not stop until you make it so. Make it stop. I will stop now because I am beyond angry. I'm at tar and feather stage. So let's continue the look back at my crystal ball from a year ago, so I don't burn this place down.
Just think a movie called Soul just did that to you. That's about perfect.
Number 8.
By the way, I'm giving you 2.
Okay.
2.
You give me 2?
2 out of 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 4 different people will win the first 4 states in the Democratic presidential primary to set off a free-for-all for the nomination. This was close. 3 out of 4.
Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. That's pretty close. That's at least worth a half. 0.75.
Yeah,
All right.
2.75.
What do you think?
I'll give you full points because it's that level of chaos that was some of the special sauce of the necromancy.
Yep.
Yes. Hell, we still don't know who won Iowa, frankly. It could be 4 out of 4. Maybe Elizabeth Warren won. We don't even know. We don't know
Numbers
who won the
are
Iowa
transgendered
caucuses.
now. Yeah.
And remember when that one guy drove his truck in from nowhere, Iowa for Rick Santorum, and how the media said, that's why we can't have any more Iowa caucuses? You remember that, right?
Sure.
Notice that the Democrats can just flat out rig it in the open. And I don't see the media clamoring for the Iowa caucuses to end because of what the Democrats did. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Republicans have a guy driving from Nowheresville in Iowa in a pickup truck to drop off some handwritten ballots. And suddenly this is just a cockamamie, asinine, I like the way you handle your rig, Trucker Glock, who wants it process. And it's got to go, right? Democrats literally got the people who did the Obamacare website to rig up an app to rig the outcome of this. They just did an audit that just said this actually about a week or 2 ago. Dude, the Democratic side, it's just another day that ends in Y, right? All right. So far, we're actually doing pretty good.
Yep.
So far. Okay. Next. This is where things begin to go off the rails. For the first time since Kennedy Carter in 1980, there will be a truly brokered convention.
Even without COVID, I'm not giving you credit for this one because of the rallying that went on for Joe Biden.
Yeah, you're right. Even without COVID, it wasn't going to happen because Super Tuesday was prior to COVID. Yep. You're exactly right. Yeah, this wasn't going down either way. Yeah, this was way off. Right. Now, in my defense, because you know I'm going to defend myself, it did seem like the logical next step if the first thing occurred, right?
Yeah.
Sure. But I would have never foreseen that they could do what they did in 48 hours.
It took something just ridiculous like that for this to not even be remotely possible.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that in their America, their people literally are just lemmings for their media. Just lemmings for it. I mean, our people right now are killing each other over which Fox News shows to still watch, right? But in the other side, 48 hours before Super Tuesday, Joe Biden's the guy. I guess Joe Biden's the guy. Didn't he win Minnesota or something, a state he never even visited?
Yep.
All right, by like 10 points or something ridiculous. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, this was never happening with or without COVID. So this one was wrong. Okay, agreed. Let's continue. A move will be made to nominate Michelle Obama as a compromise candidate for president at the brokered Democratic convention, which she will turn down. Now, there was some talk about her as a potential running mate, but I never believed that. But again, this wasn't happening with or without COVID, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, because there's no way. See, I think COVID made it. Whatever the hopes of Michelle Obama as their dream candidate, if anything, I think COVID raised those odds because it meant that she wouldn't have to do any campaigning because Joe Biden didn't have to until after the second debate where she lost, right? Okay, so but this one was wrong and was never happening either. So these were simpler times, right? All right, number 5. The Democrats will nominate Bernie Sanders for president at their brokered convention.
The correlated parlay is not really working out for them.
No, I hope you teased this one down, by the way. I hope you guys, did you tease this one?
Yeah.
Didn't bet this one straight up?
No.
Yeah, you got some points with this one? I hit like $100 teaser parlay in the NFL yesterday, so that was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, this one.
I love this pick. I love though. I'll give you a half point just because it still remains a fantastic pick because you came a long way on definitely on the Sanders road, but on the Buttigieg road too, just accepting the reality.
Yeah, I thought after New Hampshire he was inevitable. I was tweeting the Thanos graphic.
Yes.
I thought he was inevitable, but I never foresaw that they could pull off what they did for Joe Biden on Super Tuesday. That's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in modern American politics is when they just marshaled all of their forces, man. They went Valley of Megiddo for Joe. All the media, everything they had, they just went all in. We got to stop that guy over my shoulder right now. He cannot be the nominee. Can't be. So there you go. All right. So we're still at what, 3 out of 10? Okay.
2.75. Yeah.
All right. Number 4, Sanders will name Nevada U.S. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto as his running mate. See, my problem with these is you mentioned the term correlated parlay. Because we were in an election year, you guys have never seen me have this many predictions play on other predictions before. But because we were in an election year, I just kind of felt like, well, if that were to happen, then, blank would happen next, right? Okay. And so since the election didn't go the way that I thought I was going to go because of what happened on Super Tuesday and then with COVID, then this is like, from Earth 9. I mean, this is an alternative dimension.
With full context now, I will still give you a half point, even though I never had heard of her when you made this pick. I thought it was impossible, and it was. But it's still more possible than what actually happened.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris.
Yep. Now, this next one
is bad.
No.
Okay. Number 3, sensing the Democrat Party is in disarray and unable to count on it to win conventionally. The so-called deep state will go all in to do whatever it takes to stop Donald Trump from winning elections and winning re-election, including unprecedented disruption of our foreign policy and economy.
All the points.
I'm giving you double credit for that one.
All the points.
I stopped in the middle. I told you I've not looked at these since January. I had forgotten about that prediction. I mean, wow. Wow. I mean, wow.
We really predicted most of this. Yeah, we predicted on this show way before 2020 the thumb on the scale of Facebook and Twitter. We just didn't know it was going to be the full Orwell, but we absolutely. This is the point about transgenderism too. Like you're irresponsible if you don't make some kind of call like this. You can't see necessarily specific how and when it's going to happen, but the math is just 1 + 1 = 2. This is just a logical pick. I would have been ashamed if you didn't make this pick on some level. It's just like we talked about. It's the slap in the face of really experience it. You've been thinking and speaking prophetically ever since I've met you. You've always been the one. It's like, even amongst the conservative, you're always pissing them off. If you got to go all the way to the bottom of the slippery slope here, and they're like, no, can't we just go do a book deal or something like that? I mean, this is the point of all this. This couldn't but not happen if you were just paying attention on some level. The only thing is figuring out, coronavirus. Who can call that shot? But something crazy was coming. We all knew it in this room. We all knew it.
I think. And the reason this is prediction number 3 and not number 1, and what I'm guessing what'll come will undermine this somewhat, but I never suspected that Trump would play into it, that he would, oh yeah, let's just shut the country down and okay. And here's all the evidence that we should reopen it, but I also never anticipated, and this is the thing, and I'll get into this more in the overtime today, but this is the most discouraging thing in my career right now. It is not the existential stakes we are playing for. As you just pointed out, I've been trying to play for these existential stakes my entire career. Right. It's that I don't know what to do when we'll just take it. I don't know what to do with that. Well, we fired off a tweet. Well, we watched Tucker Carlson's monologue. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to do when we're just like, okay, we'll just take it then, I guess. We'll just put up with it. We'll just tolerate it. I I guess I'll just stay home. I'll just take $600. Remember I said last week the dumbest thing Republicans could do was to pass that big pork bill and then not give people money? This is actually dumber. This is I couldn't foresee they'd do something dumber, which is we're going to pass a massive pork bill but then give the people half the money we gave them the last time. I mean, this is even dumber. Now there's almost no limited government voters left in America, but they all work for conservative media. So now you're getting hammered by your own media. And you're still a bunch of racist, xenophobic, misogynistic bigots because you only sent people $600. You gave them half of what they got the last time and before Christmas. I mean, this is just beyond stupid. And that I never anticipated we would just be like, oh, I guess my business has to stay closed. Hey, boo-boo, smarter than the average bear. I guess I can't have my church open, I guess. Well, man, that sucks. I'll just wait for the Supreme Court to tell me it's okay. I don't even know what to do with that, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the antidote to that is.
There isn't one. Don't fool yourself. There isn't.
I mean, we're at the point, dude, we're not even killing prophets anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, that Isaiah guy's funny. Anyway, hey, let's go throw our kids back into the into the Molech pit again.
Right after I watch Out My Balls.
Yeah, I don't. That's where Isaiah like, don't you guys like want to stone me? No. Oh, it's funny. Whatever, dude. Cool. 5,000 G. Pour one out for Isaiah. Isn't that where we are?
Yes.
What do you do with that?
Nothing.
What if like all 10 spies had come back from Canaan? No, there's nothing we do. No, they're all too big. Would the Israel thing have just ended right there? I mean, what if like there were no Joshua and Caleb, but all 10 came back and were like, when's All My Balls on? Leave me alone, I'm baiting. Right? That's the thing I don't even know what to do with that. I still get emails. People want to push back on me. I haven't checked my inbox yet today, but there's like 30 of you that have been pushing back on me about what a great guy Bill Barr is. What if you're still going to be sending me those notes today? That part I don't know what to do with. Like if coming at me with aggression, I know what to do. I got it. I'm in. Indifference, though, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know when you're like, I just can't be bothered. Okay. Well then, all right, man. Whatevs. Right?
Yeah.
That's the most frustrating thing in my career right now is that. We're going to finally have the debates that, as you put it, I've been called a freak and a purist and an obstructionist and blah, blah, blah. And who's that Deace guy in Iowa? My whole career, we're now going to finally discuss the things I warned everybody for years are really what we need to be discussing. And now that we're here, people are like, hey, did you watch Lindsey Graham promise to get to the bottom of the deep state on Hannity last night? That was great. Number 2. Iran and North Korea will form a formal strategic alliance whose primary intent is to destabilize U.S. foreign policy across the globe. They didn't have to. It was called coronavirus. So moving on. Number 1, Donald Trump will be reelected president with more popular votes and electoral college votes than he won the last time. Well, he did get 10 million more.
Yeah. So I'm giving
popular votes.
0.33 points here.
And he would have won more electoral college votes if we didn't count vote drops at 4 a.m. in numerous states, right?
You actually did better this year than you thought.
This wasn't as bad as I thought it was actually going to be dreadful. It's not good, but I mean, I thought it was just going to be like, hide your kids, hide your wife, because, we're mocking everybody up in here.
By my math, you got over 50%.
Wow.
5.08 points.
That's not bad.
Well, you rallied.
That number 3, man. That should have been number 1. But I guess the mistake I made is I assumed when the threat level raised, we would rise to the threat level. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I didn't think we would be like,
we Netflix.
Hey, what do you think about Tiger King?
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd do that. That thing I didn't think we'd do. I guess though I should have seen it coming. When you and I were teenage boys, we went to pornography, and young men, we went to pornography when we couldn't get women. This generation of young men goes to pornography instead of women, right?
Yeah.
I just want to get an instant release and then I'm done. Thank you. Like, I don't care if the real thing is that much better. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want anything that goes along with that.
Seems like work.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not just some frustrated teenager whose hormones are out of control and I'm scared to approach girls, so I'm stealing my dad's penthouse stash. No, this generation of young men goes to pornography instead of women. It prefers the porn to the actual thing. I guess I should have seen it coming. I should have stopped at number 3 and I should have said, we won't rise to that level. We won't do it.
Well, we believed part of the lie, at least part of it that we've been talking about. Remember, we're better than that. Mm-hmm. You've heard this from how many people you respect about this moment in time, and it's got to. Normal's coming back. We got to fight. They keep convincing themselves that the slippery slope isn't bottomless.
A non-binary, mentally ill human being who considers himself living in occupied land is helping to oversee the vaccine distribution program for the CDC. Repeat after me. We are not better than that. Repeat after me again. Total depravity. Total depravity. All right, our top 5 clips of the year, and then we close it out with not the prophet that we need, but the prophet that we deserve. Next. This is it, the final segment of 2020. Yeah, we're going to fill in for Glenn Beck before the end of the year. But we won't be back on this show after today until Monday, January the 4th, and that's when we will unveil the official show slogan for 2021. We will be meeting as a team after this show and having some of those conversations after the program, in fact. And then I'll have my top 10 predictions for 2021. And we'll be off and running, but that's after a couple of weeks off for the holidays. So let's close things out here. Our top 5 clips of the year, as selected by you, Aaron.
We'll begin with this dude.
Our numbers are increasing, and everybody has to be aware of that. And then we need to, stay home if you can. Do everything you can to try to keep the numbers down.
That is Austin Mayor Steve Adler. Now, why did I choose this clip? Well, he's sitting at his timeshare in Cabo that he arrived at by taking a private jet, as I understand, for his daughter's wedding. And of course, no one should be mad at him for doing that in a typical year, but he's telling us to stay home while he's sitting at his timeshare. And the reason I could have picked Nancy Pelosi walking through the hair salon, I could have picked any number of clips here. But you listen to his voice. He sounds like this. So you guys need to stay home, okay? The numbers are rising at an alarming pace. That's the guy who's ruining your life. That's the guy who's ruining the business owner who can't open or reopen their store because they're listening to him while he goes on his nice little trips to Cabo. That's why I chose that clip.
Yeah, apparently nobody does oppose him. I mean, so kneel before Zod, you plebes. You're doing it anyway. Just keep doing it. You were made to be ruled. I mean, no one does oppose him. He's not even alone. We could just done clips of these sorts of bureaucratic hypocrites over and over and over again. Every other generation of Americans, we would have had to stop posses from going all vigilante on people like this.
Yes.
Okay? In this generation of Americans, it's just like, dude, man, what'd you think of last night's Tiger King? Okay, cool, I guess. This is what the Chinese figured out. What the Chinese figured out is if you give human beings a certain amount of trinketism, they'll let you do whatever they want to them, especially if they're separated spiritually from a narrative larger than themselves. Just don't deny the things that human nature wants. Give it to them. Give it to them. That's what the Chinese figured out. And that's why they demonstrably increased their power post Tiananmen Square for the 30 years after that. They figured out, just let you guys go see a Marvel movie and enjoy the era of technology we're in, and you'll do whatever we say. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Number 4.
This one's a classic.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly, but fires have been started.
That's just a scene out of a Naked Gun movie, guys. That happened live on the air. Nobody's ashamed. Everybody's back on the air the next day, right? With the same narrative over and over again.
And if you had taken the Proud Boys, who are claimed to be the Antifa equivalent of the right,
I guess I don't know anything about them.
Yeah,
but,
so
okay.
I'm not saying that they are, but that guy would say so.
Yes.
So let's say that instead of Antifa and BLM doing it, it was them, and the same level of mostly peaceful carnage was going on, the fire and everything. That guy, instead of saying mostly peaceful, was saying, and I'm pretty sure Donald Trump came down here and started the fire himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's to Steve's point about there's just no truth. There is nothing that won't be spun in the name of whatever advantage is required.
Why would they stop? Who's held accountable for this on any level?
That's my point. I can't
Every day in America is the Al Pacino speech at the end of The Devil's Advocate. Every day. So every day is John Milton's rant at the end of that movie. Every day.
So how does this end without violence?
That's my fear. Number 3.
Spirit of the age summed up in one video.
Oh, yes. She's a teacher in a Subaru. So a guy you wouldn't let be your water boy sits at his posh timeshare in Cabo telling you to stay home, and you do. You stay home. And a woman who's a terrible caricature of every teacher union in America goes full Karenzilla. She rant and raves, and you just stay home. Okay. Again, I don't know what to do with that. Do you guys know what to do with that?
Efforting in 2021 because we're going to have to do something about it.
Yeah. Number 2.
This is some guy from the Department of Justice. I still don't know his name. Just totally emblematic of the mask holes. The Branch Covidians. He puts his mask on backstage for a grand total of about 3 seconds as he walks up to the podium to speak to the media when he takes it off.
Tar and feather. Tar and feather. Tar and feather. Or the other option is cable news contributor. Cable news contributor. Another option, New York Times bestselling author. New York Times bestselling author. That's another option. Or guest on The View. Guest on The View. Another option. But I like my first choice. Tar and feather. Aaron, number 1.
There's really no other choice.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Like I said on the Deace Group Roundtable Friday, that's a portrait of the year, is that clip. That is a portrait for the year, that clip. That's it right there. Who is... We couldn't get Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, Philip of Macedonia, Alexander the Great, Cyrus the Mede, Nebuchadnezzar. Xerxes. Oh my God. This be dude who has a higher T level than Lindsey Graham, mayor of Austin. Debbie and her bedazzled face shield Burks. Anthony, I got a swirly every day in high school Fauci. We got those guys. I don't mind being conquered. I'd prefer it, but every great society eventually faces these moments, right? I'm just very much insulted at who was sent to put us down. I thought we deserved a better class of dictator than this. But clearly, Todd, I was wrong.
It's cosmic in its implications. You remember that? I mean, Northwestern, man, that Northwestern defense can just flat out hit now. But back in the day, when we'd be routing them at their student section, it's all right, it's okay, you're going to work for us someday.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's okay, you're going to work for us someday.
The Greeks used to believe in a fundamental mind, body, soul. You know, you went to the academy and, learning geometry and understanding what was under the stars and going out and the precursor of the Olympics. There's the total man. That is what we got. It's way more than a punchline that he can't throw the ball the 60 feet 6 inches to home plate. It's way more about that. It's all of his deviance is overcompensating for his grotesque inadequacy in so many other parts of life.
Could use a little Christmas right now. You know what we need?
Take it away, Tatiana McGrath.
That's what we need. Not the prophet. What you're about to see is not the prophet we need, but very much we close 2020 out with the prophet that we deserve. This is the parody account. Tatiana McGrath, we have talked to its rightful owner, the person behind, the genius behind this account before. It's a him. He's a British comedian, social commentator, and he's brilliant. A couple of days ago, he posted this thread I want to share with you now. Many people scoff at my progressive ideas and predictions, but eventually they always come true. So I thought I'd start compiling a list of every time I was ahead of the curve. On December 22nd, 2018, I called for biological sex to be removed from birth certificates. On December 17th, 2020, the New England Journal of Medicine concurred. On October 1st, 2019, I suggested that young women should be encouraged to travel alone in rural Pakistan. On October 12th, 2019, Forbes magazine concurred. On September 19th, 2018, I criticized Julie Andrews, aka Mary Poppins, for chimney soot blackface. On January 28th, 2019, the New York Times concurred. On March 7th, 2019, I published my book, Woke, in which I argued that skyscrapers are oppressive phallic symbols. On July 6th, 2020, The Guardian concurred. On January 22nd, 2019, I called for the Oscars to prioritize diversity, such as most feminist picture, most woke screenplay, least predatory male, etc. On June 12th, 2020, the Oscars concurred. On June 6, 2019, I demanded an option to mute white males. On July 14th, 2020, Instagram concurred. On August 29th, 2019, I urged parents to give their newborn babies numbers instead of names. And on May 6, 2020, Elon Musk concurred. On May 2nd, 2020, I criticized the NHS for appropriating the LGBTQ rainbow flag. On May 6, 2020, Forbes magazine concurred. On December 21st, 2018, I wrote an article to endorse fighting with relatives during the holiday season. On November 28th, 2019, The Nation concurred. On March 7th, 2019, I published in my book Woke, in which I called out Helen Keller for her white privilege. On December 15th, 2020, Time magazine concurred. How many more of these are there?
That's it.
I think that's enough. Strange days indeed. We are on a razor's edge as a society. And I think what makes this, if it goes down, one of the most, if not the most disappointing implosions, cultural implosions, great power implosions in human history, is that, you could argue in a lot of those other cultures, the people really didn't have the power to stop it from happening, right? You know, one of the things Lord Nefarious talks about in A Nefarious Plot is what made America much more difficult to conquer is that other great powers, if you just corrupted the few elites that ran the show, they just brought everybody down, the society down with them. I mean, if you're a peasant farmer in rural Russia, there's really nothing you can do about whatever the hell's going on inside the Kremlin with Tsar Nicholas II and Rasputin, right? You're totally and completely beholden to them, right?
Right.
What made this difficult in America, though, is that the people were empowered. So that if and when a few of the elites or a caste or a class of elites lost their damn minds, they would just be losing their damn minds on their own and pay the penalty and price for it on their own. This threatens to be the first culture that has ever gone down, despite the fact the people themselves were empowered to do something about it and just didn't. Now, I know for a lot of you, this feels overwhelming. And yet, we're going to break here today and spend the next couple of weeks celebrating the fact that in God's vocabulary, overwhelming doesn't exist. Unless we're talking about it in the context of the overwhelming force of His will. That when we could not get to heaven, God, through His Son, brought heaven down to us. There is nothing impossible if you believe in the story of Christmas and then its culmination at Easter. But that's the question, isn't it? That's the disclaimer in the equation. Do we believe? Are we that people anymore? In the coming year, we will find out. Merry Christmas, John 3:17.